Hello, this is Dr. Michael DeAndrea, the instructor in the Human Development Across the Lifespan course at Springfield College. I'm making this video lecture for students in my courses at Springfield College, but also to make it available to other students and practitioners in the field that might be interested in learning more about a topic entitled Spiritual Development from a Relational-Cultural Perspective. I hope you find this video lecture helpful in terms of stimulating your ongoing personal and professional development. I'm going to be utilizing a video listing of a narrative that I prepared for this class, and I'm going to share that with everyone right about now. And here comes the sharing, and you can still see me in the upper right-hand corner. The topic for this video lecture is addressing issues related to spirituality and religion to foster and sustain the healthy development of larger numbers of persons from diverse backgrounds across the lifespan. This video is designed to provide an overview of issues related to spirituality and religion in ways that can foster and sustain healthy development across the lifespan. The concepts of spirituality and religion are extremely complex, and thus this video lecture is not designed to address in detail the nuances of the impact of spirituality and religion, or the absence of spirituality and religion in the lives of people in our society, and those persons specifically that we are called upon to work with in our future professional practices. With this in mind, the video lecture will provide an overview of some of the key points included in my own research and writing, as well as concepts drawn from Chapter 15, entitled Spiritual Development, written by Melanie Monk in the required textbook for the Human Development course at Springfield College, entitled Diversity and Development, Critical Contexts That Shape Our Lives and Relationships. It's edited by Dr. Dana Comstock. The textbook I co-authored, entitled Theories of Counseling and Psychotherapy, a Multicultural Perspective, I address some of the issues related to spirituality and religion that I'll briefly highlight here. As I have written in this textbook, research impact drawn from a national study indicates that 95%, yeah, that's right. The survey showed that 95% of the persons surveyed across the United States indicate that they believe in a God or some unifying spiritual force in the universe. This research finding confirms what many practitioners already know, and it is important to, and that being that it's important to address spiritual and religious issues in counseling and psychotherapy. I would add to address these issues among student affairs professionals and other mental health allies who provide a myriad of services with persons in need. Now, additional research evidence suggests that persons who have a spiritual orientation toward life tend to report a better overall quality of life. Although the important role spirituality plays in many people's health and well-being has been explored in several research studies, it is highlighted here as an important component of the importance and ethical nature of addressing these issues with clients in appropriate and effective ways. Now, some students and practitioners in the field express discomfort and a lack of interest or motivation in addressing spiritual and religious issues, even though they may be articulated by the clients or students we work with. Many clients and students do, in fact, believe, often articulate how their spiritual, religious beliefs and principles represent important resources that they utilize to cope with stressful life situations. Despite the overwhelming number of persons who believe in God or some transcendental force and are willing to articulate the importance of these factors in their lives, it is truly disturbing to know that some students and practitioners in the field are unwilling and or uncomfortable to address these issues as part of a holistic component in the overall psychology and development of many people in our society. Students and practitioners who resist and or are uncomfortable addressing spiritual and religious issues in appropriate ways with appropriate clients who express placing a high value on these issues, put their own interests and their beliefs and perspectives in front of the needs and strengths of our clients and students. We have emphasized repeatedly this semester and in our counseling program that it is important for counselors and practitioners to increase their awareness of their biases that exist, biases that can and often do lead to negative impact on clients and students that we serve. The main purpose in making a commitment to the ongoing awareness and striving to become aware of our biases is so that we can become conscious of these biases and then be better positioned to regulate our cognitive and emotional reactions that reduce the level of biased approaches in the counseling process, which often lead to adverse outcomes among our clients and students. So in this way, one might say that effective and ethical counseling is about the counselor, who is encouraged to become more aware of his or her biases in order that they might be able to better regulate these biases and to increase respectability for clients, values, issues, principles, coping strategies, and stressful life situations. It should be strongly emphasized that counseling is not all about the counselor. Rather, counseling and efforts to promote healthy human development are all about the clients and students we serve and not all about ourselves. Placing our own self-interest in comfort in front of the needs, strengths, values, and skills utilized in the helping process is not only ineffective, but is indeed unethical. With this in mind, I will now proceed to discuss some of the key points highlighted in the chapter mentioned above. Once again, upon reading this chapter, I found the reflection questions at the beginning of chapter 15 very important for students to utilize in order to become aware of our biases and to expand our thinking and competence in dealing with spiritual, religious issues in appropriate ways with appropriate clients and students in our future professional practices. Among the questions I thought were particularly important, and I want to encourage all students to reflect on these questions in order to increase their awareness and to transcend their current biases, are as follows. 1, what does spirituality mean to you? 2, how is religion different from spirituality from your perspective? 3, if you have a spiritual aspect to your life, how did that develop for yourself? If you don't have a spiritual aspect of your life, how did that develop for yourself? How has your spirituality changed or developed over your lifetime, and what caused it to change? And the final question that I think is helpful in fostering our own development to become aware of our biases is as follows. Have you ever experienced difficulties with your spirituality? If so, what was that like for you? In the next section, I will first highlight some of the differences between the concept of religion and spirituality, and then proceed to provide an overview of the human development theory on faith development presented by James Fowler. According to the chapter on spiritual development, used as required reading for the Human Development course in the Department of Counseling at Springfield College, the concepts of religion and spirituality are distinguished in the following way. Religion is noted to often be identified with an extrinsic orientation and associated with institutionalized beliefs and attitudes. This extrinsic orientation is seen in religion, where truth is maintained extrinsically by religious leaders, scriptures, and institutions. In contrast, the concept of spirituality is marked by a greater intrinsic orientation and a reliance on an internal authority possessed by individuals. This means that the expert in a person's spiritual life is derived from the individual's own experiences. In this intrinsic orientation of spirituality, there is great value placed on personal insight and personal identity development. Researchers have developed and detailed specific components of spirituality, which include the following characteristics. One, spirituality involves a transcendent dimension, which is an orientation to life that goes beyond ordinary daily experiences. Spirituality helps to clarify meaning and purpose in one's life. Spirituality is thought to fuel one's mission in life. Spirituality illuminates the belief in the sacredness of life. Material things are valued in a person's spiritual orientation, but they are not sought as the end of one's pursuits. Spirituality embraces the value of altruism. Spirituality embraces the principle of idealism. Spirituality embraces awareness of the tragedies in life. And spirituality is often viewed as the systemic force that integrates all dimensions of one life. In other words, spirituality is integrative. In the next session of this video, I will focus on the different stages of spiritual development as outlined by the developmental theorist James Fowler. This model is presented for a couple of reasons. First, as in all theories we've studied this semester, we are encouraged to view theoretical frameworks not as absolute truths, but as types of stories that are reflected in people's lives, in the way people think, feel, and behave in different situations. We have also emphasized that no one completely operates from one stage of human development, but often integrates some of the skills, cognitions, emotional reactions, and the schemata of the world that exists in earlier stages. Second, by briefly describing the 6 stages of James Fowler's model of faith development, students are able to expand their thinking about the differential patterns that people manifest related to spiritual or religious issues, beliefs, and values. These 6 stages can be helpful as they serve as roadmaps to help us not only understand, but to challenge us to empathize with different ways individuals construct meaning of faith and spirituality in their lives. Third, although not specifically stated in chapter 15, I will make a few comments about the type of skills that counseling practitioners can use when working with persons operating at different stages of James Fowler's model of faith development. The first strategy or skill I encourage students to consider utilizing is in the form of the following question that can be used with clients and students we work with at the beginning of our relationships. This sort of question is as follows. Many people have beliefs about spirituality and religion that are important in the way they lead their lives. How would you describe your own spiritual or religious beliefs, and to what degree do these beliefs and values impact the way you lead your life? This is recommended for use with students we work with in different settings. This open-ended question can be very helpful in initiating a conversation with our clients or students to gain insight into, one, if the student we are working with does operate from strong beliefs and values that are spiritually based, or do not operate from such beliefs and values. And two, it is helpful to us to gain insight and empathy for the ways in which such beliefs and values represent important strengths that can be called upon for the client to utilize when experiencing stressful life situations. James Fowler's 6 stages of faith development. Stage 1 is called the intuitive projective faith stage. This stage represents the faith of a young child up to early verbal stages in their development. The young child responds to the emotional environment of the family and or church and spiritual communities and learns cultural rights and wrongs. The child also develops what is referred to as a general spiritual imagination. An example of this stage of faith is in a child's belief in Santa Claus. Stage 2, mythic literal faith. This stage represents the verbal young child up to late childhood. Here, the child is fascinated by the spiritual and religious myths of the faith that literally occurs without any abstract meaning attached to these myths. The child may respond to such mythic systems of faith, such as crucifixes, statues, and other spiritual religious symbols. An example of this stage of faith is a child's belief in a parental image of God as one who punishes the bad and rewards the good. Stage 3, synthetic conventional faith. This is the stage of older childhood, adolescence, and for many adults. At this stage, faith is seen as that which brings people together and provides a unifying concept and sense of belonging for family, congregation, and society in general. For many, this is the terminal, the ending stage of faith development, where faith development stops for many people. In this stage, individuals do not acknowledge differences in faith practices of others because they view their own faith as the right one, the true one, and the only one. An example of this stage can be seen in adolescence, when teenagers form groups based upon fitting in. For instance, if you wear these clothes or listen to this type of music, like these types of people, then you are part of the group. At this stage, faith is rule-bound and hierarchical with no questioning of the group's norms, beliefs, and values. As noted above, researchers have now indicated that this stage is the operative stage for many adults across the lifespan. Stage 4, individuating, reflective faith. This stage may begin in adolescence or later. In this life phase, the individual senses the need to develop a personal faith within oneself for the purpose of creating personalized meaning in one's experiences in life and in one's relationship to others and society in general. The individual turns away from external sources of spiritual authority and begins to focus more on what is personally meaningful, developing a personalized internal, intrinsic spiritual orientation. The focus of faith now moves away from being viewed as a unifying concept of a group and more as making sense by the individual about his or her notions of spirituality and religion. This stage may occur in those who stay within organized religious practices, as well as those persons who leave more traditional religious practices. An example of someone in this stage of faith is a person who begins to critically examine their beliefs and reflect on the values, ideals, and meaning that are personalized constructions for themselves. Stage 5, injunctive faith. At this stage, the individual acknowledges the paradoxes inherent within the faith journey. For instance, how can a good God allow bad things to happen to good people? One faith is tested by these paradoxes. Once faith is tested by these paradoxes and deepened, along with a greater empathy for others on their own faith turns. The individual at this stage gains a keener awareness of the complexities of and is more comfortable with ambiguities, things about spirituality and religion that are unclear, that are ambiguous. Individuals at this stage become more open to religious and spiritual traditions that are different from one's own. An example of someone at this stage is a person who is willing to respect the validity of other person's spiritual or religious truths, even when they contradict one's own, while simultaneously being able to communicate one's own authentic truth. Stage 6, universalizing faith. This stage is viewed more as a category of persons rather than a unique stage, whose examples of faith have a profound impact on other people's faith journeys. Such individuals in this category commonly give up their own lives to actualize their spiritual value in the world. Example of persons at this stage of faith include Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mahatma Gandhi. The author of chapter 15 highlights an important point by stating that a major drawback of Fowler's model of faith development is that it was drawn from a sample consisting of 95% white Judeo-Christians. Thus, the generalizability of this theory is limited. This drawback represents a clarion call for other counselor educators, practitioners, and students to broaden the research base through their own investigations related to spirituality and religion as it informs the helping process and healthy human development across the lifespan. In other words, we all have a responsibility to embark on some formal or informal investigative work, developing and testing hypotheses so that we can increase the knowledge base in this area. As noted in my opening remarks, the complexity of issues related to spirituality, of religion and spirituality, and their relevance for the work professional counselors and student affairs practitioners do is beyond the scope of a single chapter or one single video lecture. The author of our textbook describes other issues of relevance for this discussion, including sections entitled The Spiritual Development of Late Persons in Later Adulthood, Spiritual Development and the Context of Identity Development, Spirituality and Religion in a Cultural Context, and Spirituality, Religion in the Context of Gender, and finally, spirituality and one's social sexual orientation. Students are strongly encouraged to carefully review and study these sections to broaden their understanding of the ways in which spirituality and religion impact the lives of millions of people in our society, and predictably will impact many of those persons we come in contact with in our future professional practices as counselors and student affairs practitioners. With these ideas presented in this video lecture, I will now ask students to form small groups to discuss their reactions to this general overview of these topics and their relevance for the work you will do as professional counselors and student affairs practitioners in the future. Thank you for your attention to this video lecture, and best wishes for your ongoing success as a developing mental health professional. In peace and with appreciation, Michael D'Andrea. I hope you have found this video lecture helpful to give you a broad overview, and I hope it really whets your appetite and sense of responsibility to respond by utilizing adult learning activities to strengthen and expand your understanding of religion and spirituality as hallmarks in the healthy human development of many people in our society and many people we are called upon to serve. Most of all, I hope that we're able to transcend the biases we may have about spirituality and religion as it applies to the work we do as counselors and student affairs practitioners. Thank you again for taking the time. You're a wonderful group, and I look forward to talking about this issue with each of you later. Have a good day and a good holiday season.